Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be here with you. It's been a while since I've done any of these on my own. I've been traveling a lot this summer, fall, so my schedule's been a little crazy, but I am excited to be here to talk about two, I think, really important subjects and two subjects that I'm really interested in, which is EQ. I'm a certified EQ emotional intelligence practitioner and AI. I am a technophobe who just has gotten very involved in AI because I just see where the future is going. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Andrea Miller. I am a LinkedIn top voice and I coach and consult globally. I've worked with clients in over 50 countries, and I just find this stuff super interesting and incredibly important. And what I'm going to talk about today is really a bit more about the balance, this human element in AI leadership. You know, we keep talking about the technology, but there's still humans on the other side of that technology still. And so I think it's really important to make sure that we keep the balance right and that we don't fully outsource our brains. So, on that note, because I know I often talk about that, on that note, I'm going to dive right in. The beginning of what I'm going to talk about is AI and empathy in the decision making process. And when we talk about, AI, I use it a lot. It's just something that's incredibly useful in terms of decision making. It's really great with large data sets. So I think, it's something that we do use, but we have to keep in mind that it's not always correct. And even if it is correct, it doesn't account for the human element. So we really need to find this balance. We really, and I will be using that word a lot. It's not only because I'm a Libra and that's where I live, it's also just because it's real. We need to be thinking about how do we use this technology in a smart way, recognizing that there are humans on the other side of it. For example, when we use it for data analysis, you know, it has an impact on our culture, an impact on our organizations. So we really do need to be keeping in mind that that piece of it and having some empathy when we talk to people about these things and we make decisions with the data we get from AI. And that's why EQ is such a critical skill in this process. And EQ is a critical skill for any leader. Daniel Goldman, the kind of godfather of EQ, says that that EQ is makes up about two-thirds of that leadership element, and it's because leadership is essentially a human endeavor. And we want to do it well. We really need to take time to understand the humans that we work with, that we lead, that we sell to, whatever our business is. There's a human element to it. So we want to take a very structured approach, even when we're working with data, to be thinking about that EQ element, that human element in the process and making sure, being intentional. And I'm a big fan of intentionality in whatever we do. So making sure that we're thinking about the human no matter what the data says. So the second piece is a really big area that I love. I spent about 10 years of my adult life working overseas. I worked with the UN. My graduate work was in intercultural management. And I can see the benefits. There are tremendous benefits to AI, using AI in the global context, instant translation, ways to help people working in this remote world to be able to communicate better or at least communicate more because it's not always better. There's a real nuance to communication in general, but specifically when we're dealing with other cultures. One of my favorite books on the subject is The Culture of Emotions by Batya Mesquita, and it's Between Us is the name of the book. And it's really about how even though we're speaking the same language, it means different things in different cultures. So while we can have the translation to help people communicate better, we want to be paying attention to the nuances around it. We want to make sure people understand. And I think that's really the critical piece. And that's where the empathy and the emotional intelligence comes in. And even before AI, it was something I always leaned on, that active listening piece. What is this person saying? And what is their body telling me, the body language is telling me when they're speaking? And how do I make sure that they understand me and I understand them? And you really need to have that EQ around it. So while the AI can help facilitate some of this, we need to be paying attention to the nuances around it. And part of that, I wrote here and talk about having a communication audit. And it really is that attention piece and really just checking in and making sure we're doing things the right way so that everybody is with us no matter what we're talking about, what the context we're saying it in. Again, things just can easily get lost in translation. So, how do we ensure that everyone feels heard and understood and that everyone does understand? Because one of the things that I found speaking other languages myself, learning how to speak other languages badly, is there's a tendency to say, I understand, even when you don't, because nobody wants to look like they don't understand. So I think it's just really important, even more so now, when people have the words translated into their own language to make sure the nuances are understood in that process. The next piece is the growth mindset. And when I talk about growth mindset with AI, it's actually two-sided. So one is having a growth mindset for learning AI. Have been kind of fascinated lately about the diverging statistics around AI usage. You know, are we really using it? Are companies really using it? You know, I've seen so many different data points, and I can tell you anecdotally, talking to my friends, people use it on occasion. They think it's kind of interesting, maybe not, a little weird, a little annoying. There's all sorts of different things that people say. But generally speaking, there's a level of fear around it. Will it take my job? You know, should I use it? You know, the outputs aren't great sometimes. You know, what is this all about? So there's a bit of a fixed mindset. And as somebody who had one around technology, I can tell you it's real and it's something that, you know, can be changed, but we need to be aware of it and we need to be, again, intentional about it. And then supporting our teams. I actually should have flipped the numbers on this slide. I think safety, the failure forward framework, mouthful, I think having that psychological safety that helps people test things out, try things out, want to innovate freely because they're not afraid that if I get it wrong, people will think less of me. It might impact my career in some way. We need to make sure that people feel safe so that they can have more of a growth mindset around AI. And then one of the things that I want to talk about today is also how we can use AI to help us in the things we do, to grow in the things we do. And I think a great example of this is this presentation. So I had an idea for this presentation. It's just some things that have been coming up for me, but it was a busy week and I didn't have as much time to prepare. So what did I do? I took the framework that I had and I stuck it into Gamma dot app, which if you haven't tried it, give it a try. Super cool. Spit out this presentation in less than a minute. I don't know, I didn't time it, somewhere around there. And that was great. So I have this beautiful presentation, but I also didn't have enough time to rehearse as much as I like to because I'm a little neurotic and I like to rehearse a lot. And so I went and played with my newest toy, which is Google Notebook. And if you haven't tried Google Notebook, you have to try Google Notebook. It is super insane. So I took the presentation, put it in Google Notebook with, I forgot what else. There was something else I put in. Oh, I think my original framework and maybe some other things. And it just spit out this 10-minute podcast that I got to hear my presentation, somebody else saying my presentation, which was just kind of background noise for me while I was working this morning, and it was pretty awesome. So, you know, we can use the AI to teach us other things, is really my point, and have a growth mindset because it's not enough to be an AI expert, and it's not enough to be an expert in your area. But when we combine the two, it can be magic. I mean, there's no guarantees. Our world is insane right now. But if we want to really stay ahead of the curve, our ability to keep learning and leveraging AI to do that, I think is just makes it so much easier now. So again, you know, try these tools, play around with this. But as leaders, we also need to make sure that our people are doing that they feel safe doing that. And we need to tell them we're doing that, and we need to create that psychological safety so that they want to do it too. The next thing around that I'll talk about is the emotional regulation related to that. And this is a key part of EQ, emotional regulation, our ability to manage our stress. To take those breaks to reset when things get really tense and people are having a lot of stress around AI. They're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their companies, they're worried. We're just worried these days. There's a lot more worried than ever before. So to talk about that, to make this part of the conversation, and to make sure that people are actually taking some time. And I wrote down here that 10-minute mindset reset is just super important, just so we can manage the stress in our daily lives and really show up as our best. If we're not able to manage these things, it's impossible to do them. Then we get back into that fixed mindset space and we lose confidence. And the thing about confidence is we have to take action to build it. We actually have to have done something to really feel confident in doing it. So we want to make sure that people can lower the temperature and just feel like, okay, I've got this. I can do this. And one of the ways to do that is as leaders to basically just show people what that looks like. To let them know that, you go through the same thing. It's not only them. We all are managing some level of stress. We all have things that make us uncomfortable. And the question is, how do we get past that? How do we get comfortable with the stress and really just do what we want to do and do what we need to do to be successful? And a piece of that, going back to this AI, EQ, human synergy, is leveraging the technology. So there are tons of apps now, a lot of technology that you can use to help with some of this. A lot of this is on our phone, or you could even just go into ChatGPT and just put in a prompt. I'm sure everybody's heard of prompts by now, and just ask it for, a plan for you and to get as specific as possible in terms of what it is you want to achieve, but leverage the technology. This is where we're at right now. This technology, it's imperfect. It's deeply imperfect, but it's getting better and it's only going to keep getting better. And the rate that it's getting better is a little bit insane, which is one of the reasons why we need to manage our emotions and regulate the stress that's going through our bodies so that we can perform at our best and we can keep learning, going back to that growth mindset. So, we just really need to use it to our benefit at the time being, for the time being, and just, try to manage the stress so we can keep moving forward and produce and be our best selves in this process. And I don't know if any of you have any questions around these subjects. I'm always happy to chat about it. If you have any questions, please drop them in. I'd love to support you in any way I can. So for the next thing I want to talk about is the trust and authenticity. And one of the things about AI, I think it's really diminished trust on a number of levels. I mean, obviously, there's a level of trust that's been diminished because people are concerned about their livelihoods, concerned about their work. They don't know what's happening. Companies, as I said, are at different levels of use, and some don't actually have plans. And people know that this is important, but they don't know why necessarily. So being as transparent as possible, I think, is absolutely critical at this point in time. We want to be talking about it. We want to be talking about anything that's going on because it matters to people. Uncertainty, we do not do well with uncertainty. Going back to EQ and emotional regulation, our brains hate not knowing. So, as much as we can share with people where we're at, what the company is thinking, what you're thinking as a leader, the better off you're going to be, the better off your team is going to be, and and the easier it'll be to move forward as things happen because they will happen at varying rates depending on your company, but they will be happening. And to schedule regular briefings, if possible, if there are people who are further ahead than others, also to be sharing, going back, sorry, to that growth mindset piece. We learn best together. So making sure people are sharing where they're at and what they're doing, but also to be briefing people on what the company is thinking and where things are going. If something's happening, people want to know. They want to be able to plan. They may not like it, and it's uncomfortable. But as leaders, we need to let people know what's going on because they're already talking about it. My experience in working in multiple companies is the grapevine is really functions well. It may be inaccurate. It may not actually be telling people what they need to hear, but people are hearing it. So it should be coming from you if you want to build that trust and have that authenticity in your team. Be clear and share and make sure that it's happening on a regular basis and then also allow for feedback. And when I talk about feedback, it should be feedback in multiple ways. Some people are comfortable sharing face to face, but not everybody is. So, also having ways to share anonymous feedback is super important these days. But we just want to make sure that people feel heard and that they feel like they know what's going on and that they can trust you in this kind of scary time. Again, that unknown, that uncertainty is really difficult for us as human beings. So, as much as you're able to support the people you work with and help them in being their best, the better off everyone's going to be. So, to start wrapping things up, again, it's about balance. It's about that synergy between the two. When we talk about it, again, the data is only as good as our interpretation of it. We want to be able to have these global conversations with making sure that things aren't lost in the process, that we're able to regulate our emotions so we're not that stressed out in terms of what we're doing, and we're able to grow, that we're able to use the technology both to de stress ourselves, but also to grow so that people are able to stay current with this technology and their subject areas because AI really is only right now, at least, as good as what we put in, garbage out. We've all heard it. So we want to make sure that people really are staying current in their own work and anything that's tangential. I think, we really want to just keep learning. That is, I think, the best way to future proof our careers, quite frankly. So it is that balance. And within that balance, we want to make sure that we use that empathy as a tool to make sure that people recognize that they are critical in this equation, that they are most important in this equation, and that the AI is only an augmentation. It's something to make us all do better. It's not meant to replace us, but how do we make sure we're leveraging our talents and abilities at the foremost that we can? So, this is super important, making sure we're communicating these messages, making sure that people feel heard and that they can trust what they're hearing as the truth is so critical and finding ways to make sure that they keep growing. And I recognize not everyone has a budget for this, but there's internal ways, particularly with AI, that people can be growing their skills. And as leaders and as managers, we can help nurture that. Even if we're not able to have a budget to actually support that, we can help them recognize the path forward, think about what they need to be doing to get there. So the thing I guess that I will leave you with right now, sorry, um, is really to be thinking about that. How do we leverage this incredible tool that we've been given, if it's a bit worrisome at times, but how do we leverage it so that we make sure that everybody is achieving what they need to be achieving in this kind of crazy world? And what I would recommend right now, excuse me, mm, is that you reflect on the things I mentioned today, and you can go back for this presentation, or you can just DM me and I can send you the FAQs that I got off of Google Notebook. I'm telling you, insane, or the briefing note that came out too. Just going to leave it with that. But you can reflect on some of the things I talk about and really think about how to implement it. How do we start implementing these things, even if it's just that break and it doesn't have to be 10 minutes, it could be 1 minute. But our ability to stay present and stay focused and to keep growing in a time when it's just difficult. And if our brains get hijacked, it's impossible. So our ability to self-regulate, it might be actually the most important thing I talked about today, because it's hard to do the others if you don't have control of your emotions in this process. Um, And then finally, as I said, you can DM me for the presentation, DM me for my notebook uh, demos and info, and or just if you want or need some support around this or anything else, yeah, just reach out. I love talking about these things and so many others. So, and I hope you're following me because now that I'm back in DC, I will be doing more presentations, and I would love to know what it is that's most on your minds that would be most valuable for you. So, thank you so much for taking this time to be with me and to listen to me. And I look forward to seeing you back here in future presentations, future LinkedIn Lives. Have a great day and a wonderful weekend to come.